President Donald Trump says he's ordered the Pentagon to prepare for possible military action in Nigeria, accusing his government of allowing Christians to be killed by Islamist extremists. He's also cutting U.S. aid and adding Nigeria to America's countries of particular concern list for religious freedom violations. They join countries like China, North Korea, and Russia. Joining me now is Washington Stand reporter Casey Harper, who has been following this story since it broke on Friday. Casey, is Nigeria responding to these calls to end the killing of Christians by Islamist extremists?
Well, thanks, Tony. Nigerian leaders actually said they were surprised by the president's comments, especially his post saying the military could be involved. Now, some Nigerian leaders have actually been hesitant to admit that Christians are being persecuted or even outright denied it, but we do have evidence for it. And they did say that they would welcome help from the president as long as their sovereignty is respected.
They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. And they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world, very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen.
Now, what's going on here? Well, Christians are in the south of Nigeria, while the Muslims have gathered in northern Nigeria, which has made northern Nigeria and the middle of the country in between a pretty dangerous place for Christians. In fact, Christian leaders in the country say the believers have faced brutal attacks for years from groups like Boko Haram and ISIS affiliates. Now they're calling for stronger international support to protect Christian communities and push the government to uphold religious freedom, Tony.
Well, it's interesting. It's long overdue. The Family Research Council and I have both pushed to have Nigeria added back to this countries of particular concern list over this systematic persecution of Christians. We were able to add them to the list for the first time when I was chairman of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom back in 2020, but the Biden administration removed them as soon as they took control, saying it was not religious hostility, rather it was the results of climate change. Yeah. That's right.
Climate change.
All right, yeah, that's right. That's what they said. In fact, I got that from the Secretary of State himself. All right, that was Secretary Blinken. All right, let's shift gears to tomorrow's elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City. Casey, how are these races shaping up?
That's right, Tony. Tomorrow is Election Day, and in New Jersey, we'll start there. Republican Jack Ciattarelli is fighting for the governor's seat in a pretty tight race against Democrat Mikey Sherrill. Ciattarelli is emphasizing local issues like property taxes and support for minority-owned businesses. Now down south in Virginia, Republican Winsome Earl Sears is challenging Democrat Abigail Spanberger, aiming to continue the state's shift towards Republican leadership. Now in this race, the Democrat does have a lead, despite a pretty serious scandal involving the Democrat Attorney General candidate who's made some pretty disturbing comments about political violence towards children. And one more race the whole country is watching. Zohran Mamdani seems poised to cruise into victory tomorrow. He's a socialist, some say a communist, who's criticized Israel, proposed higher taxes, expanding public housing, free buses. He's even talked about abolishing private property. So these races, they're seen as a look ahead for next year's midterms. But Tony, if you're thinking about buying a condo in Midtown Manhattan, I might hold off a little longer.
I mean, where is he going to pay for all these things that he wants to give away? I mean,
well, he's talking about the billionaires tax, but the billionaires are talking about leaving. I mean, they say about socialism, when you run out of other people's money, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, we're going to talk with FRC Action's Matt Carpenter a little bit later for a closer look at tomorrow's election. So, folks, if you live in New Jersey, Virginia, or New York City, be prepared to go and vote. Now, Casey, there are reports that Senate Democrats could be maybe a little more willing to end the government shutdown after these elections. The government shutdown is one day away from becoming the longest in U.S. history. And, of course, one of the big topics now, Casey, is the SNAP benefits. What's the latest?
Yeah, that's right, Tony. And there is some news on this front, actually. The Trump administration said that it actually will partially fund food aid for millions of Americans on food stamps. That's good news. This announcement does come after two judges basically ordered the federal government to drain the rest of the savings account and USDA SNAP program for that. So SNAP, they're going to spend about $5 billion in contingency funds to cover part of November's benefits, but it's not going to be enough. It will help, but this program costs about $8 to $9 billion per month. Meanwhile, earlier today, House Speaker Mike Johnson, he once again made his point that this ongoing, seemingly never-ending shutdown is because of Senate Democrats.
The Schumer and Jeffries and their colleagues fear political retribution from the far-left activists in their party more than they fear the consequences of keeping the government closed for weeks on end. And they care more about that than they care about SNAP benefits.
And Johnson also made the point that sending out these funds is not so simple as just hitting a button. It can be a pretty complicated process, Tony.
All right, thanks, Casey. Obviously, we'll continue to track this as it unfolds.